It's just past 7:30 p.m. across India. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I am Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in New York, Nick Harper. Nick, good to have you with us.
Morning, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in New York. It's 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, President Biden entertains the leaders of Japan and the Philippines in a show of force against China. We'll bring you all the details. And Israel prepares for a possible strike from Iran. But first, the headlines.
For potential threats from Iran, the US vows ironclad support to Israel. American envoy calls on foreign ministers of Arab countries to mediate with Iran. Russia says it inflicts massive strikes on oil gas sites in Ukraine. IAEA board holds emergency meeting on Zaporozhye attacks in Vienna today. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to address the joint sitting of US Congress shortly. Long simmering tensions between China and its neighbors to dominate agenda at the trilateral summit. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India has always advocated for advancing peace, security and prosperity in an atmosphere free from terror and violence in an interview given to a foreign media on Pakistan. Our first news from Europe. Russia staged a major missile and drone strike on Ukrainian energy infrastructure early on Thursday, damaging substations and power facilities in 5 regions and causing emergency power cuts for at least 200,000 people. The latest attack used 82 missiles and drones. Ukraine's air defenses took down 18 of the incoming missiles and 39 drones. Russia also struck 2 Ukrainian underground gas storage facilities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Lithuania's capital Vilnius on Thursday. Ukrainian stocks of air defenses and artillery have dwindled as assistance from the West has slowed down, and a major US aid package has been blocked by Republicans in the Congress. IAEA's Board of Governors will hold an emergency meeting in Vienna on Thursday at the request of both Ukraine and Russia to discuss attacks on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. The IAEA has said that drones struck the Russian-held facility in southern Ukraine on Sunday, hitting 1 reactor building. It does not ascribe blame, but has demanded that such attacks stop. Russia said that Ukraine had again attacked the plant with drones for the 3rd day. Kiev said it had nothing to do with any such attacks, and any incidents of such kind were staged by Moscow. DD India's Dasha Chernishova has more from Moscow.
The confirmation from the Russian Ministry of Defense that in response to the Ukrainian attempt to target the Russian energy and oil refineries, all these sectors, Moscow has launched the massive strikes against the Ukrainian energy sector. And Moscow insists that it is targeting only the areas that are for the military, saying that the strikes that Moscow carried out have managed to disrupt the work of the military complexes, the military enterprises that have been producing and repairing arms. Moscow also says it is hitting the warehouses where the Western ammunition is stored and the places of the deployment of the Ukrainian military. Here, the Russian officials, they insist they want the fair assessments of the situation around the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Just to keep you, just to remind you, Moscow insists it is Ukraine that is attacking this nuclear power plant, and that's why Moscow wants the IAEA as well as the international community to put pressure on Ukraine to stop what it describes as nuclear terrorism. The Russian foreign minister said that it's not just the situation around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but in general around Ukraine, in which the Western officials have been taking the one side angle and have not been commenting on the other side of the events, meaning by that the Russian position has always been neglected from the position of the Russian officials. So Moscow does want the international community to press on Ukraine. We've heard the Russian representative with the international organizations in Vienna, Mikhail Ulyanov, saying that Ukraine has made it its daily routine to attack the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And Moscow keeps insisting that the presence of its military at the site of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is the guarantee of the security in Europe.
Ukraine and Latvia on Thursday signed a 10-year agreement envisaging annual Latvian military support for Ukraine at 0.25% of the GDP. Earlier in the day, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in Lithuania's capital Vilnius to attend a conference and to meet with the leaders of several other European countries. On to the United States now. US and Japan on Wednesday unveiled plans for projects ranging from missiles to moon landings. And Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida next heads to address the joint sitting of US Congress. My colleague Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Nick, another day of hectic activity at the White House?
That's right, Tanvi. Another packed schedule for the leaders today. US President Joe Biden and the First Lady hosted Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and his wife for a state dinner at the White House. During a toast at the dinner, Biden stated that the alliance between the two countries is stronger than ever. Kishida further emphasized Biden's sentiment, asserting that despite the Pacific Ocean between the two nations, the pioneering spirit of those who came before has united them. Kishida will also address the US Congress shortly, before joining Biden and the Philippines president for a trilateral meeting. Well, to get more on all this, DD India's Benji Hires joining us live from Washington, D.C. Benji, a big speech ahead here for Kishida to both houses of Congress. What can we expect to hear from the Prime Minister?
This is the first time that a Japanese leader will address Congress since the late Shinzo Abe, the former Prime Minister, travelled to Capitol Hill in 2015, and it's an honour bestowed to very few leaders. This is just the sixth person to have that honour during Joe Biden's presidency, and the opportunity will be used to underscore the strong partnership between the United States and Japan following the meeting between Fumio Kishida and Joe Biden at the White House yesterday. But the audience for this, I think, is very key, Nick. You see that Fumio Kishida will be addressing US lawmakers, a number of which have been reluctant to encourage America to take a strong position on the global stage, espousing the sort of sentiments pushed by former President and presumptive Republican Party nominee for the presidency, Donald Trump, his agenda of America First that we've heard so much about. And these lawmakers also blocking a major funding package for foreign aid worth tens of billions of dollars that would provide assistance, yes, to Ukraine, to Israel, Gaza, but also to allies in the Indo-Pacific. Now, none of this funding is going directly to Japan, but Japan is a major contributor of foreign aid to Ukraine. It is obviously concerned about what is going on in and around the South China Sea regarding Taiwan, and we will expect some commentary, no doubt, from Prime Minister Fumio Kishida about the necessity for the US to step up to the plate on the foreign stage. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell saying earlier this week that he hopes that Kishida's visit, that this speech shortly in Congress, would underscore, quote, that we are in a worldwide situation here against the enemies of democracy, as he calls them, led by Iran, Russia, and, he says, China.
Also plenty for Kishida to do in that speech with the messaging, and then after that he moves on to the trilateral meeting, the first of its kind between the three countries, the US, Japan and the Philippines. Are there high expectations for this trilateral?
Absolutely, and the very fact that it's happening is unprecedented. Never mind what's going to be announced, and we'll touch on that just shortly. The fact that it's occurring, the fact that these nations are meeting in this manner for the first time, it is sending a strong signal to China about how these three countries share very strong security interests. This is all about, not just today's events, but yesterday's as well, moving the relationship between the US, the Philippines and Japan from alliance protection to alliance advancement. We're told by senior administration officials that there will be a series of announcements to come from this trilateral, including new infrastructure and investment projects in the Philippines, so in other words, closer economic ties, but also announcements expected with respect to maritime cooperation in the South China Sea. President Marcos coming under pressure, according to the United States, from China. And this support that the United States wants to give is, quote, a clear demonstration that it and Japan stands shoulder to shoulder with the Philippines. The perception from these three countries is that China is exerting a threat, an aggressiveness in the region that has brought the US, Japan and the Philippines closer together. So there will be those announcements, but already the cooperation and coordination being put into practice. Japan over the past year and a half buying more US Tomahawk missiles, the Philippines granting the US access to military bases on its islands, and just in the past weekend, Nick, Japan and the Philippines joining the United States and Australia in military drills in the South China Sea.
Thank you, Benji. That was Benji Hyatt joining us live from Washington, D.C. Well, that's what's taking place in the US capital. Meanwhile, back in the Philippines capital, Manila, we've seen hundreds of activists taking to the streets to protest this trilateral meeting in Washington. The protesters condemned Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for using the country's assertion of sovereignty in the South China Sea to promote the geopolitical agenda of the United States. The Philippines, under Marcos, has deepened its military ties with both the US and Japan, as maritime run-ins with China in the South China Sea have escalated. US President Joe Biden on Wednesday extended an ironclad commitment to Israel against any potential attack on it by Iran. Biden gave the reassurances at a joint press conference with Japan's Prime Minister. The development comes in the wake of reports that Tehran will retaliate against Israel's airstrikes on the Iranian consulate in Syria's capital, Damascus.
We also want to address the Iranian threat. They're threatening to launch a significant attack on Israel. As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu, our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is preparing for scenarios in other areas of Gaza, amid concerns that Iran is preparing to strike Israel in response for the killing of a senior Iranian commander. Meanwhile, Germany's airline Lufthansa has suspended flights to Tehran because of the situation in West Asia. The region is on high alert for that possible Iranian retaliation targeting Israel. There's been no immediate word from other international airlines that fly to Tehran. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that Israel must be punished for the Damascus strike that killed 7 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members. Amid all of this, US diplomat Brett McGurk has called on the foreign ministers of Arab countries to deliver a message to Iran, urging it to lower tensions with Israel. Iran's foreign minister said on Wednesday the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar and Iraq spoke on the phone with Iran's foreign minister and discussed regional tensions. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has urged Hamas on Wednesday to accept the latest proposal for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for the release of hostages.
We're not going to stop until we do. The new proposal on the table, Bill Burns led the effort for us. We're grateful for his work. There's a now up to Hamas. They need to move on the proposal that's been made. And as I said, we'll get these hostages home where they belong, but also bring back a 6-week ceasefire that we need now. And the fact is that we're getting in somewhere in the last 3 days over 100 trucks. It's not enough, but need to be more, and there's one more opening that has to take place in the north. So we'll see what he does in terms of meeting the commitments he made.
Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh insisted that the death of 3 of his sons in an Israeli airstrike would not influence truce talks in Gaza, as operations on Thursday rocked the Palestinian territory. Israel confirmed the killings, which came as talks in Cairo for a temporary ceasefire and a hostage release deal dragged on without signs of a breakthrough. The Israeli military described the 3 sons as operatives in Hamas. Speaking to a Qatar-based broadcaster, Haniyeh suggested that the strike, which also killed 4 of his grandchildren, was an attempt to shift Hamas's negotiating stance. Trucks carrying humanitarian aid entered Gaza through the Rafah crossing on Thursday. Israel said the aid is moving into Gaza faster after international pressure, but it's still not enough to meet the urgent humanitarian needs in the enclave. 10 tons of aid was dropped by the French military in coordination with the Jordanian government over Gaza on Thursday, consisting of food and basic necessities. Well, that's it from me here in New York. Tanvi, back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Nick, for all those updates. Nick Harper joining us from New York today. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. South Korea's opposition Democratic Party emerges victorious in a parliamentary election, dealing a resounding blow to President Yoon Suk-yeol. Asian Development Bank raises India's GDP growth forecast for the current fiscal to 7%. Investment and consumer demand to drive the robust growth.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's ruling party suffered a resounding blow in the legislative elections held on Wednesday. The country's liberal opposition party scored a landslide victory but fell just short of a supermajority. The main opposition Democratic Party and its satellite party won a combined 175 seats in the 300-seat parliament. Following the drubbing, Yoon, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and other senior aides tendered their resignation. The election setback is likely to further tie his hands domestically. The National Elections Commission is expected to confirm the final results later on Thursday. The Asian Development Bank has raised India's GDP growth forecast for the financial year 2024-25 to 7% from its previous projection of 6.7% in December last year. According to its report, the robust growth is driven by strong public and private sector investment, strong services sector and improved consumer demand. The ADB said that the Indian economy grew remarkably in the 2022-23 fiscal with strong momentum in manufacturing and services. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a New York-based magazine, Newsweek's written questions, and followed up with a 90-minute conversation. Subjects covered ranged from the major economic advances made under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership to India's relationship with China and Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi is the first Prime Minister to be on Newsweek cover after former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. On Pakistan, Prime Minister Modi said India has always advocated for advancing peace, security and prosperity in our region in an atmosphere free from terror and violence. On China, PM Modi to Newsweek said, India as a democratic polity and global economic growth engine is a natural choice for those looking to diversify their supply chains. He said India is a perfect destination for those who want to set up trusted and resilient supply chains. On the India-China border dispute specifically, he said for India, the relationship with China is an important and significant one. He said it is his belief that we need to urgently address the prolonged situation on our borders so that abnormality in our bilateral relations can be put behind us. Stable and peaceful relations between India and China are important for not just our two countries, but the entire region and the world. He said that he hoped and believed that we will be able to restore and sustain peace and tranquility in our border areas. So that was some of the snippets of the conversation, the interview Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave to Newsweek yesterday. Moving on, Tesla's CEO Elon Musk confirmed a visit to India after he said that he looked forward to meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the country. In a social media post on platform X, Musk has, however, not revealed the details of when to visit India. The SpaceX founder is likely to announce the company's investment plans in India. The announcement of the billionaire's visit comes less than a month after India had announced a new electric vehicle policy. Staying with India, let's now get you up to speed with the world's largest democratic elections, which are going to start in a few days from now in India. So the first phase of elections in India will start from April 19th, and political parties are therefore crisscrossing states and organizing multiple public meetings. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and senior BJP leader held a public rally in the city of Rishikesh in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand. During his speech, Prime Minister Modi criticized the Congress party, accusing it of misappropriating funds intended for the welfare of the poor and the youth. Prime Minister Modi also held a rally in Rajasthan. Opposition parties are also going all out to woo the voters. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi visited Rajasthan today. He held public rallies in Bikaner to garner support for the party candidates. Later in the evening, Rahul Gandhi will be visiting Jodhpur city and will hold a public meeting there. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The United Kingdom has appointed Lindy Cameron as its new High Commissioner to India. She will succeed incumbent Alex Ellis at the British High Commission. Cameron has been serving as the Chief Executive of the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre since 2020. Thousands of people in Myanmar escaped to Thailand on Thursday as hundreds of military personnel withdrew to a bridge connecting the border town of Myawaddy with Thailand. The Southeast Asian nation's military-run government is battling armed rebel groups on several fronts. Singer and rapper Lisa of the South Korean girl group Blackpink announced on Wednesday that she would be joining the RCA Records for her solo music endeavors. The 27-year-old artist said she was super excited to be joining the RCA family, a home to artists such as Justin Timberlake, Mark Ronson, Wizkid and more. Scientists from the University of South California in the US are testing a quadruple robot named Spirit to walk efficiently on the moon's terrain. The training is ongoing in Oregon's Mount Hood, simulating the extreme conditions of the moon and the Mars. The idea is to develop robots to help in NASA's missions on the moon. And next we take you to Italy's Pompeii, where archaeologists have uncovered several impressive artworks depicting scenes from Greek mythology during recent excavation works. Experts believe the paintings serve the purpose of entertaining guests during social events such as those of banquets. So with that, it's a wrap in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.
बहाना नंबर